Lemon Amiga presents a Playguide video review. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hey there, welcome to another Lemon Amiga play guide and review. This time we'll be checking out Infestation. This was developed and published by Psygnosis in 1990. And this is a space-based game, so as you would expect, it begins with a rather silent space intro. Then we get a choice of languages, so let's just select the English mode for this, and then we get a nice picture drawn by Herman, and of course this is Psygnosis, so you would expect some very detailed futuristic artwork in there. And then finally we get to the main menu itself, where we can save a position to disk and load it up and format it as well, and we can also interrogate the database of the items that we'll find in the game. And so oxygen is there to pick up. There's also alien eggs, access keys, food canisters, navigation and data links, otherwise known as a compass, quartermaster's key, and suit chargers. And you'll have to find and pick up all of these items somewhere in the game and make use of them. And so, this being a 3D game, it's a good idea to familiarise yourself with all these before the game begins. We also get some great music as well in this section, and this is the only section where we hear any music at all. And you can see guardians are there, and I'm not sure if those things are possible to blow up. And on the surface we'll also find creatures, otherwise known as aliens, who are ready to blow us away. Turning back to that menu again, we can even display the credits as well from here, and you can see that this was coded by Daniel James Gallagher, who began with Voyager, and that was a 3D game for Ocean. That was his first Amiga game, and after this he moved on to Red Zone for Psygnosis in 1992. As the game begins, this is played on a joystick and also a keyboard as well. And at the beginning we'll find lots of surface aliens that we can blow away, and this game does require lots of keys on the keyboard, so if we push the up arrow on the keyboard, that will give us the jetpack, and from here, avionics, we can now fly around on the planet without touching the surface and hopefully not getting killed by those aliens. It isn't apparent at this point what we're meant to do, but we're actually meant to go to a specific grid location in order to get to an access terminal, and that switches on things. That's at grid location 9030. So if we fly to that, you can see that we can toggle the current location. We're on level 0 at the moment, that means we're on the surface. And you can see we can also check out those grid locations as well. Let's hastily land, and of course you can press the down button on the keypad and that will descend the craft, and from here we can now walk towards the computer and press F2 to interface with that. Now here comes the copy protection in the game. What you need to do is access it by typing Cal Solar, not Han Solo, Cal Solar, and that's maybe a Terry Pratchett reference, I'm not quite sure, but that will mean that we can now take off and head towards the teleporter, which should now be active. And yes, you can destroy the surface aliens, but they will wipe us out very quickly. So the main teleport is in grid reference 5050, that's the very centre of this map, and so flying towards that, unfortunately we've run out of fuel, so we're now crawling our way towards that teleporter, and you can see that we can toggle various systems as well. Once inside the base, now we have a heads up display, and from here we can also check out nitrogen 75%, oxygen 25%, that means it's breathable, and it means I can take off now the mask, the helmet, and I can breathe normally. So oxygen is definitely at a premium in this game, and there is an oxygen cylinder on the floor, and I'm not quite sure what this is. You have to be looking down to collect something, you can't just walk over it. So you can see there are lots of important keys. F1 to open the door, F2 enter a terminal, F3 to take off the helmet, F5 toggle the tactical and the recon mode, which is definitely necessary, and F7 to drop cyanide capsules, and those are important in the game because that's how we destroy the aliens. So moving through the complex, a bit like Mercenary on the Commodore 64, we'll find something on the floor. That's a cyanide cartridge, and here is our first alien egg. So in order to destroy this, and yes we can crawl along the floor if we really want to do that, in order to destroy that we'll have to use cyanide. If we touch it, unfortunately that's going to be game over, and you can't touch the poisoned alien eggs unfortunately in this game. The hardest part definitely is struggling to get into the complex itself, and you can see lots of things flying around the planet's surface like Elite. And so let's make our way again. Having activated the teleporter, you follow the arrows on the floor, and that should take you down to the next level, level 1 it calls it. So this is the first sub-level, and you can see a creature there. Unfortunately we can't shoot it at the moment because we'll need to aim for that. And this controller has two modes. First of all, there is the navigation mode that we're in at the moment. That means we can move forward and backwards, left and right, and that is a fixed position unfortunately in navigation mode. But there is also recon mode as well, and by toggling that, that means we can now look up and down. Now aim for that alien, and I'm not quite sure if we need the helmet on at this point, but the helmet will trigger all of our systems, and as long as you've got the helmet on then all of the systems will be active. So you can see the air canister there, we're doing alright for air at the moment, so we don't really need to collect that. And let's crawl along the floor. That's a battery charger. We'll definitely need to keep an eye on our power supply as we're playing this game. So air, food and power are at a premium, and we'll get a readout of those a bit later on. You can see those are the teleports that we came in on, and we can go back to the planet surface if we really want to do that, but the planet surface is definitely hostile, so I wouldn't recommend that at the best of times. So again, let's crawl around these locations and let's try to find that first alien egg. It's a pity that there is no music in the entire game, but what we do get is sound effects, and basically the shooting sound effects and the sound effects of Darth Vader, otherwise known as us, walking around the complex breathing away with our breathing apparatus. So let's get the job done this time. In order to kill the alien eggs, first of all we'll need to put on our helmet, because we're going to need to use cyanide gas towards them, and by pressing one of the F keys we can now launch the cyanide gas into that area, and by toggling up the air analyzer we can now see that the cyanide is now in the location, and that will clear eventually, but we'll have to move away from that location in order to take off our helmet, otherwise we'll die on the cyanide gas. It's now breathable, nitrogen and oxygen, so we can now take that off, and let's move on to the next stage. And this game is introducing itself to us rather slowly, but you can see huge hills to climb, because if we touch one of these things we'll die, and I think it can shoot us as well. This is a Guardian, and there is a battery behind the Guardian that we could collect. Let's just put on the suit, and that's not really necessary for this particular job. And we also need, more importantly, a screwdriver, which is on the floor as well. So battery is no problem, but we inadvertently touched the Guardian that time, which is not appropriate, because that means yet again it's game over. So the training stage of this game, just like Warhead that we saw, which is very difficult to even begin the game, this one starts us off pretty tough at the beginning of it. You only get a precious little time on the planet's surface before we run out of oxygen and we run out of time, so you have to get on with it, and you have to fly out to locations pretty quickly, and you have to know where those are, of course, by navigating the planet's surface. And I think it gives you the tips in the manual, and it certainly gives you the Cal Solar in the manual. Unfortunately, the jetpack is only used on the planet's surface, so you'll only get to use it this once, and again the fuel runs out pretty smartly as well. It's difficult enough flying around trying to get to the correct location, because sometimes the jetpack can overshoot, and sometimes it's easier to move around on the surface because that means we're not wasting fuel. And as long as we avoid those aliens, we can keep on the move and make our way to that destination. So having activated that, let's move into the transporter now, and moving through it in the wrong direction. Unfortunately, let's try that again, and unfortunately not, because we've just been poisoned by the aliens because we didn't get into the transporter in time. So what we're going to do for the final time is activate the terminal and walk into the teleport. And right at this point it would be a good idea, I think you can press escape or one of the F keys, and that saves up our progress. Let's waste no more time now. We can now take off our helmet, and you can see all two in the top corner. Definitely it's a good idea to observe the air quality in every single place that we visit in this game. This isn't dark side, but it does have that 3D kind of a atmosphere to it, so you'll be plodding around in this game. And again, let's leave the oxygen up here just in case we really need that for later on, and there really is no point collecting that right now. So finally, let's explore the game, and now from now on won't be restarting it again, we'll simply be trying to get through it. And the hardest part at the beginning of it is to navigate around and to find out where we are in the first place, because these rooms are identical. We don't have luxurious tapestries on the wall or anything like that, not even a marker like a lampshade or anything like that, so we'll just have to get used to the square element, just like Castle Master. So now let's get rid of this. That's our first egg destroyed. There are 167 eggs in the entire place, and you'll have to get rid of every single one of them. And this game borrows heavily, of course, from the Alien movies, or Aliens, and you'll find Queen aliens as well. So let's not waste any more time this time. Let's get that screwdriver, and hopefully by moving behind this time get that thing. That's a battery charger. I think we can only carry one of each, and that automatically will charge the battery. So if we carry food, that will automatically top up the food if we collect that, and the oxygen as well. If we're running out, as soon as we walk over it, that will automatically top it up. So we don't have pockets, unfortunately, in this game, but fortunately for us, these things are manually operated. You can see we can also tilt our view up, down, left, right, and also angles as well, and that will definitely come in handy for looking around corners later on. We'll have to look around corners as we try to get around this complex, because there could be an alien behind it, and later on we'll have to get ready to shoot. So that very much looks like the entrance with the teleporter and the air canister. Do I collect that? Well, according to that, we've used up one of our air tanks, and we've still got one in reserve. So maybe I'm going to leave that, maybe I'm going to pick it up. What do I actually decide to do in this particular case? Let's see. And yes, we'll have to look down in order to collect that, in order to activate that, and that saves us actually picking these things up by mistake. You can see there is a number of views that we can toggle as well in our heads up display, and that gives us the gas canisters that we've got left, and also our food level and our medication, which is basically our health. So every time we touch something, there is something like that. And yes, I think this is a network play game, so there's even a scratch pad as well, and from there we can write down coordinates, because hopefully every section of the space will have a coordinate in there, so we can write those down. If we really need health, then we can simply go straight towards where we last found it and noted that down in the scratch pad. So this is a very interactive game, and it's a thinking man's adventure, or a thinking person's a puzzler and adventure. So this time we've now got past the Guardian, and we've collected now the air supply, so now it's time to venture on to the deeper side of this complex. We're still on level 1 at the moment. That's virtually the surface level, that's all the way at the top, and I think there is at least 6 levels in the game. That room requires a key, and I don't think we've got a key for that at the moment. We'll have to pick that up again. Just like mercenary, the symbol on the door denotes the key that we need, so we need to look out for that kind of diamond shaped key whilst we're walking around slowly this alien complex. What we're actually doing is walking into the hangar, and it's a good job that we had our helmet on, because the hangar is 0 gravity. You'll find a shuttle in there, and that's very nicely drawn, and most of the magazine comments commented on the fact that that's nicely drawn. And in here we'll also find a terminal, and that's one of the important things that you find on every deck. That shows us the level that we're on, and by zooming in and out it shows us the grid, and the blue flashing things are actually the eggs that we need to get rid of, and the solid blue thing is the lift that we'll need to use to access other levels, the elevator. So there is only maybe 4 eggs now on this particular level. If we can find where they are, we can go straight towards them, and knocking out this first level is pretty important at this stage of the game, although it's not critical, I don't think. And you can see that there is a gate on this particular vent, and now that we've got the screwdriver we can simply open the door with F1, and that will get rid of the vent. And fortunately, if you take the left hand fork, I think it is, then that's a dead end and you'll be going around a maze forever. But if you follow the right hand fork, that should take us to where we need to go. So let's get rid of that vent, and let's crawl through this gap, where at the very end of this corridor we'll find another alien egg. Quite sure if this is an alien that we can shoot, or if that's a trapdoor. I think I've wandered in there before and died, so let's not bother. And so that's now our second egg out of 167 completely collected and destroyed. So now we can really start to make some headway now. We can completely ignore the rest of that vent system because it doesn't lead anywhere, and if we check out the map, that will knock off the egg from the map, and it will also tell us where we're going. And that shuttle ship and that hover ship, unfortunately, I think is almost redundant in the game until the very end of it, and then you'll have to use that to escape the planet before it blows up. So now that we've got through that section, we now get some air again, and you'll have to make sure that you don't walk into the outside bit without the mask on, otherwise of course that's a quick trip to the death screen, and it helps to save up the game every so often so that you don't make those mistakes. We're in a different area now, and there are things to collect, and there is a teleport as well. and at this stage we're not short of anything. So if we walk in the left hand side of the teleport, that will move us forward, and if we walk in the right hand side it won't do anything because that's the exit gate. And that's the exit gate. We're now walking out of the right hand side of that teleport. That takes us onto another room with another teleport. Let's take the left hand gate as well, and that takes us on to another area. And yes, the air is still breathable, luckily, so let's take the mask off and start exploring this one. And some more cyanide, that comes in handy, and you'll get used to the various shapes and sizes of things that we can pick up. And I'm actually leaving things behind at the moment, knowing full well that I'm going to have to collect them after I get maybe through this area. So let's unlock again with the F1 key another vent, and let's crawl through here, hopefully trying to find another alien egg. And there is maybe a special item that we need to collect in this particular area, and I managed to watch a long play I think and saw that, or I might have done it by, well, not trial and error, because you can't really explore these things by trial and error because these corridors are so long and so samey. It's not like Mercenary when the walls change and you go through doors and you get sub corridors and big rooms eventually. No, this one is identical all the way through it, so I must have seen this on some kind of a long play, and you can see some of these corridors even look like dead ends until you find your way all the way through them. But fortunately for me, I'm going to have to get there, so let's continue on through these dark corridors. And there are no aliens on this level, I don't think, so we're fairly safe, but there are aliens and guardians and other things on all the other levels. And of course we haven't even scratched the surface yet of those eggs, so that's the lift key, that's the elevator key that we need. So the elevator card means that we can use the central elevator, which takes us through the level, and that means that we're going to have to remember our way all the way back now, and rushing back. And no idea, well, we're checking out all of our systems. The food level you can see is running out, so we're going to have to find some food next time we fall over that and pick that up. So fast forwarding through this footage, you can see it's fairly linear at this point, and that's good for the gameplay, but it's not very good because it's quite boring trying to get back again to the start. Having gone through this complex, we'll then have to go through those teleporters again, and that takes us down to the deck where we were on before. And I think this is teleporting us to a different spot on the deck, and hopefully if you've written down the deck layout from the blueprints on graph paper, then you can find your way around. Otherwise you'll have to memorise the whole thing, and it's trial and error. So ignoring the right hand teleport, which does absolutely nothing, that's everything found on this particular level of this area. So now we can hopefully teleport out of it again. And again, I think most of these areas have oxygen in them, so that means we can breathe. Unfortunately, the next area that we've gone into is yet again another secret area, and this first level of the complex, and you can see arrows on the floor. Those actually point towards the in and the out points of the teleporter. All we need to do is to turn right at this point and follow the other arrow into the teleporter, because it's too dark in here right at the minute. We don't have any kind of a lamp source that we can illuminate this area yet, and so we can walk around and we can bang our head on the walls. I don't think there's anything to pick up, and the only thing in this area of any value whatsoever is the arrow on the floor, which points towards the other half of that teleporter that we need to get into. So this is just a bit of comedy, I think, on behalf of the programmer, where we can wander around blindly and eventually fall over that teleport, because that's the only thing in here. This was coded again by Daniel James Gallagher, and you'll find Voyager by Ocean is a pretty similar game with a pretty similar colour scheme, only in that game you are on the planet's surface destroying things, and that's where they got the idea from destroying the aliens at the beginning of this game. The graphics were created by Jim Bowers, who created graphics for the Killing Game Show, and I think some screens in Awesome as well, Aquaventura, which was another 3D Psygnosis game, and he also worked on Microcosm as well. I think that was his concept design as well, and then he moved on to Wipeout, the Wipeout games after this. So definitely 3D heritage going on there with Jim Bowers. And the music that you heard on the title screen and the spot effects was created by Sean Conran, and he also created the music for Klax and virtually all of the high-tech games on the Commodore 64. Lastly, the picture that you saw was created by Herman Sarando, and Herman, you might remember from Exile, he created the loading picture from that and several other games on the Amiga. We now find ourselves back to the previous area again because the teleports go around in a loop, so we've now looped back to the place where we were before on level 1. You can see the food level is virtually 0, so let's collect a battery, and now let's collect the food before we starve to death. And yes, you can definitely starve to death in this particular game, so that's the food canister. That only gives us half of the food that we need. Luckily there's 2 of them here, and you might wonder why there's 2 of them. That's to recharge us after running and getting that vital key. Now we've got the elevator key, it's just a small matter of finding our way back to the elevator again without going outside and getting our head sucked out of our helmet. Hopefully we can avoid all of the unnecessary areas and keep an eye on the door, and that means that finally the training section of this game is complete, and now we move on to the main area by accessing this elevator. And I think you can press maybe the up and down cursor keys, I'm not quite sure, but now we can move from level to level. Let's move down 1 level, and now this is the green level, and this level is probably going to be toxic, and so you're probably going to need your helmet on for the second level. That's another green level, so that's going to be another toxic level, and that's the third one down. And so if you wander around these things without your helmet on, eventually you will overcome by the radiation and you will die, and that takes away the medication level that you saw on that particular readout earlier on, and you'll have to collect medication if you want to walk around and take some damage. So this area, it looks safe, it's green, and yes, it's got oxygen. So now I think this is level 5, we've gone down quite a few levels, and that means it's safe to explore it. Unfortunately these areas are full of aliens and other things that we'll need to avoid, and so again, going around without the helmet on, we've succumbed to the radiation, and we really can't afford to do that. That means we'll have to find all of those air canisters and ration them. So we can't go around without the helmet on. Note to self, put that in the scratch pad, don't do it again. So now we're here, let's move on, and so let's move down, hopefully down through the elevator to another important place that we'll need to find in this base, and that's the central computer room, and that's at the very bottom of it. And well, that's a guardian, and again I'm not quite sure if we can shoot guardians or whether we still have to avoid them. I think if you look at them, their electromagnetic gaze will take away our medication level again, and it will injure us. I'm not quite sure, but you can see I'm not even denting that thing at the moment. And yes, we've now succumbed again to the radiation because fortunately there was radiation on that level. So without further ado, now we're still on the top level. It looks like we've saved the game on the top level, which I guess you can do, or you can use save states. But for now I'm going down all the way down to the bottom level of this game, and so let's check it out. And there's a food canister here if you need that in an emergency, which is great to know. So this is the central computer area of the complex, and this is important because there is a detonator and it's going to blow up. So if we don't deactivate the detonator, at this stage of the game, the planet is going to blow up before we've done too much more exploring. So at this stage it's important to get in there, and it's important to take down the force field that you can see by using the terminal on the wall. And then it goes into a mini game where we get to match up the colours, and of course we'll have to match those up darkest at the top, medium, lighter, and then light green at the bottom. And if you're colourblind, hopefully you can see those as shades of grey. So this is a tile puzzle test, and I think you move those all in one row as you're moving those around, which is pretty difficult, and I never was any good at these all in a row tile moving puzzle games, and so I'm not going to get any further with it on this particular playthrough. But hopefully if you can get all those in a line and then move the screen around so that they're all in a line, you can get a lot further than I did, because as you can see I didn't get anywhere with this particular force field puzzle. But if you can deactivate the force field, you go in there and switch off the central computer. That means it won't blow up, and then at the end of the game you're going to have to return to this spot and rig the computer to blow up, and then you're going to have to leave, I think, using one of those escape shuttle pods. So this now is deep into the game, and from now on we'll have to go from level to level, deck to deck, clearing that of alien eggs, of which there are tons of them, and you won't find too many oxygen cylinders either. So we're being careful at this point, putting the helmet on, and I guess you'll get used to the areas that have oxygen that you don't need the helmet for, and I think there are areas with radiation as well. So at this point I think I can actually take the helmet off. And again, there are loads of alien eggs all in a row, so if you go into that complex with the helmet on, armed with loads of cyanide canisters, you can then destroy all those, and I guess that's great fun if you can find out where it is. And so where it is, well, it's quite convoluted because there is a side stage here. We can go to the side and you can see that it's completely breathable, and that's a good job because there is precious few canisters knocking around, and you will usually ignore those on the levels where you don't need the helmet on, and that saves oxygen. And you can see maybe this is another outdoor area, I'm not quite sure, so let's just leave the helmet on for this. You can see there are rows of tents knocking around, and yet again a vital food canister. We'll need to pick up those and ration them. And is there anything in here? And I'm not quite sure, but there's usually a terminal knocking around, and it's again paramount to find that terminal, to find where everything is. So let's return back to the terminal that we found earlier on, and if we get lost at any point, hopefully if we're not using up the oxygen, we're still using up the food supply, unfortunately. So we can turn off the systems, and that means that we're not using up the oxygen. That's a good thing, and we can still leave the helmet on for radiation. And yes, behind the terminal we'll find another vent, so let's duck down and let's crawl again on our hands and knees through that vent, and let's see if we can find somewhere, because hopefully it should have plenty of alien eggs in there, and it's pretty unwieldy sometimes to find the right F keys. So if you're playing this game, definitely if you can put key tabs on your keyboard to tell you what everything does. Most of the keys that we need to press are the F keys, but we also need the keypad as well for our various systems, our computer readouts, and switching between those in the helmet. And luckily there aren't too many main keyboard controls. It's usually the F keys or the numeric keypad or the cursor keys for moving around. Unfortunately this has been blocked by the aliens. That's an alien complex, and I don't think that there is a flamethrower in this game. I think you only get the plasma gun, and destroying the alien eggs is of course the cyanide. So we're crawling around these tunnels, and once you've memorised where to go and what to do, I guess this game's fun. But we've actually come out all the way back out at the terminal again, and are we going to use that again? Well, it's pretty obvious that we really need to do that because it's easy to get lost, and the magazine reviewers said that it was quite deep and it's difficult to get into, and it is difficult and it is easy to get lost. They also said that there is alien queens somewhere around these levels, and it's definitely a pencil and paper job. They recommended mapping this out to paper, and then you can go from place to place, and I guess if you know where all of the eggs are, you can clear it out deck by deck, and then go for the food, go for the oxygen, go for the energy if you've lost any, and make your way around the game just like that. But at the moment this feels very atmospheric, and you never know what's going to be around the next corner. If it's another guardian that's going to kill us, and if it's another alien we'll have to get ready to shoot that. And we haven't seen too many aliens dotted around, but they are there, and at this stage trying to introduce us to these levels. That's some more oxygen. Do we need that? Well, yes, I'd say that we need some oxygen, so let's grab that whilst we're here. And yes, this game does get tense later on because you have to ration everything and rush from pickup to pickup, and it's not the alien eggs that is the problem, it's simply the rationing of all the commodities that we need. So definitely mapping those out is helpful. So you can see we really need to be, well, in the vicinity of those eggs to get rid of them, and then we can do that. And what's that? I can't even remember what that is at the moment. I think that's extra ammo or something like that. So you can see it's now breathable again. So definitely taking the helmet on and off is one of those atmospheric touches. And you can see medication. We definitely need medication. Maybe that was a medication canister that we're ignoring at the moment. You can see we've spent 27 minutes according to that playing this game, and it really is a long game, and it's going to take a couple of hours to get through even if you know what to do. So I do have respect for this. It's a creep 'em up, and you can see, well, is that an alien? No, it's a door, and that's a teleport. So I definitely have more respect from this than many of the very slow freescape games on the Amiga, which were ridiculously slow, although I am playing this with the R30. So we're coming to the end of it now, or at least the end of my playthrough, and you can see that we're wandering around various dead ends, and we've got rid of another alien egg, and I'm anticipating falling over loads of them. And again, the teleports take us to inaccessible areas on that level, so sometimes the level areas can only be accessed with those teleports, and it's important to note that because sometimes they can take us out of danger and all the way back again to the elevator. And this looks pretty familiar. I think we're walking backwards, I'm not quite sure, and it's a pity that we don't have a built-in map or a mappable thing like one of those 3D shooters like Alien Breed 3D 2, which gives us an auto map option, at least not that I've found. And definitely an auto map would make this game a dream to play. Very fun, very atmospheric. Unfortunately not. So yes, here we are, we've managed to find ourselves back to the elevator again. And there's more than one elevator, there is quite a few dotted around the complex. This is simply the central one. And now let's move into the alien complex itself. This is where you'll find the queen aliens, and this is where you come just before you want to destroy the entire planet, because I think you have to destroy the queen aliens before you leave this place. I'm not quite sure. That looks like food. It is. Let's get some more food. So this is coming to the end of this play guide. I've definitely got respect for it. I definitely love the atmosphere, and I don't really appreciate the rationing going on, because sometimes the teleports take you all over the map and you might not even get back to the area where you found those pickups. So I think it's a pretty linear game. You're supposed to do X to get to Y, and if you follow it by the book then you should be able to get through it. Of course, anything moving is an alien, and this thing's an alien. We can look around corners pretty easily, and as long as we've got the helmet on we should be able to dive out and start shooting it. And in Recon Mode we can look up and down so we know that we're actually hitting that target. Unfortunately we forgot to deactivate the central computer, or we didn't break into that, so it's now blown up, and now that's game over. Info gave this 60%, Ace gave it 72, Amiga Joker gave it 75, Amiga Action gave it 76, The One gave it 85, The Games Machine gave it 88, Amiga Format gave it 89, Dato gave it 90, Joystick gave it 90, Amiga Computing gave this 90%, Generation 4 gave it 93, C Omega gave it 94, and Zap64 gave this 94%, which means the average score is 8.5 out of 10. Thank you for watching this play guide, and I'll see you again sometime soon. Thank you.